Hey everyone, it's Ash here from what is currently Yena, but is about to change. And I wanted to record this video because I've been thinking for a while about doing a video to act as like a diary for the startup journey, because I thought it might be pretty helpful for people to hear about some of the challenges they're experienced along the way. Also, maybe as a benefit for members. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this content yet, if it goes past this first video, but recently announced that we're changing our name, and that's powered by a whole bunch of different considerations. So I wanted to do a video just to dive a little bit deeper into that. A couple of people said, hey, it'd be good to know a bit more. And here it is, I guess. So for those of you who don't know what Yena is an accidental business. It was started about 6 or 7 years ago now as a meetup in Bristol. Um, just as a safe space to connect with other people that were doing things similarly to me. I was always going out networking for my last business, which was a marketing agency, and finding that I was meeting people that were 20, 30, 40 years my senior, and couldn't really connect with them from a cultural point of view. They didn't really get me, I didn't get them. They were talking about their kids, their houses, their holidays, and I was 20 with no money and had no idea what any of those things were. Um, I wanted to go and find people that were like me. My friends didn't really get what I did for a living. My parents probably never will exactly get what I do for a living. To be honest, I don't know if I'll ever know what I really do for a living, but it was great to kind of fill a room full of like just a couple of people, I think 5 or 6 people at that first event, who truly got it. They understood the journey, the challenges, and they enjoyed it so much. They wanted to know when the next one was. I had no idea what to say, so I said next month, and we've run them ever since. And just before COVID hit, we were running over 100 events a year in 21 cities across 9 countries, about 5,000 people a year coming along to those, which is insane when I think about it. It's just a team of 2. In Bristol, we've got some incredible hosts and amazing community that we've built up that's been enabled us to be able to run those events. But somewhere along the way, this was never supposed to be a business, by the way. Like, all of those events are free. We didn't charge for anything. But along the way, people started to ask what we were selling. So I thought maybe I should create something and ask them what they wanted. They all said something different, which is annoying, and so I tried to solve all of their problems and put it in a box, called it a membership, and away we went. And I remember now that, like, we'd run so many free events, people just signed up to it straight away because I think they felt like they owed me for running those events. But the product at the time was rubbish, so I realized that charging them at the time, which was actually ironically more than it is now, £15 a month, because they felt like they owed me for running those events, had like a lifetime to it. It was only ever going to last like 3 or 4 months before people realized, hey, I'm paying you for something that used to be free. Why am I paying you? I could just cancel and can continue going to these events for free. So I needed to change, needed to iterate fast. Abby came on board, and we did so, and we have been doing so since. And that process I've called community product fit. Lots of people talk about product market fit, and I recently wrote an article on my Medium account that you can go and find. I'll try and post a link somewhere. Talks about community product fit, because nobody ever does. Everybody talks about product market fit. Find a problem, create a solution that you're passionate about, ideally, and then find people to buy it. There's an even bigger problem, though, that exists when you find a whole bunch of people, put them in a group, call it a community, and then have to figure out what they want to buy from you. That's really difficult. In hindsight, I think product market fit is easier to find than community product fit. Neither of them are easy, but community product fit is super difficult, given the circumstances. So we've been spending the last 2-3 years trying to figure out what these people want. And the other problem that comes with community is that everybody wants so much. And because you've got an inherent ability to build a supply chain with amazing people and do awesome things, the question doesn't become what you could do, because you can do a lot of it with all of that people power. The question becomes what you should do. And I like shiny things, so I want to do all of them. But you can't do all things well. Of course, we know that. I've learned that many times. And so now it's about doing a couple of things at most really, really well. And that brings us into the new phase. So over the last year, we've been thinking about, what is Yena in its ultimate form? Where could it go? What happens if it doesn't fail? What does it end up being? what am I really passionate about? What gets me out of bed in the morning? What gets the fire going? Um, and there's a whole bunch of answers to that. And for a while, there was a question of, do we pivot massively, or do we continue doing what we're doing in this format here because it's not risky and it seems to work, whilst developing something more interesting over here that's much riskier and see what happens? The challenge with that is obviously running two things means that you're already dividing your focus by 50% on each, and that's not healthy for either side. So the realization came that actually both of them, or all of it, exists, but it all exists on one timeline, and it's not about dividing focus. It's about enabling all of it in a chronological order. And so here's what the latest thinking is. The latest thinking is that we're coming out of the first phase of 3 that I foresee for our business. There's probably 4, 5, 6 phases, but I'm not looking that far ahead right now. Phase 3 is far ahead enough, but we're coming out of phase 1. And phase 1 is what I like to look at as the accidental business that we grew into a startup ecosystem by subscription. Something that's really valuable, something that I wrote about in my article that people read and kind of mentioned that this would be interesting in video format. So you can go and read that if you want to find out a bit more about what that is. But essentially, it's everything that you would get from a trade body and or an accelerator without the need to apply or pay a huge fee for it. It's democratized so that anyone, anywhere, building any business can get the support that they need from day one to help them build a better company. It's good. If it wasn't, I wouldn't be running the company. It's worth the money and then some. But nobody really has ever Googled the term startup ecosystem by subscription. So it's hard for people to discover and understand what they're buying. So that learning comes into the next phase, phase 2, which is repositioning and telling people that we're something that's a little bit easier to understand, which is business benefits by subscription. Lots of people buy benefits for their staff, for their business, for themselves. And so we think this is more compelling. I think it's easier to understand. We don't have to change the product too much, but we will be improving upon it, and building something greater, hopefully. The other piece that we'll be implementing here is in providing business benefits by subscription. We realize there are lots of other communities that want to provide benefits for their cohorts, but they just don't have the capacity or the time or the know-how to do so. But we've been doing it for a bunch of years now, and we've started to get inbound inquiries from people who are building their own communities and saying, hey, we want to provide benefits. Can we do that powered by Yena? And the answer that we haven't really had those questions up until recently, until we started kind of pitching this new narrative. But now I can answer the question and say, yeah, I mean, we can take on your cohort of 10, 100, 1,000 people and provide them with the benefits they need because we've built the infrastructure in order to scale. So it's really exciting. Going to be doing that next year. But the biggest announcement was obviously around this rebrand. And people were like, hey, why are you changing your name first and foremost, let alone rebranding it? So I just wanted to cover the reasons behind that, really. First reason was that Yena started as a network specifically for young entrepreneurs. That's where the name comes from. The Young Entrepreneur Networking Association is what it stood for. It was capitalized, all capitals. It was an acronym so that people understood what it was. We wanted to be seen as an association, as an organization. That was good at the time because it justified and it legitimized something that was just a small meetup run by just a guy making it up as he went along. And I was a brand builder before, so I could build a brand around that. But over time, the classification of what a young entrepreneur came into question. I started to out-age our own demographic focus, which started as up to 25, then went to 30, then went to 35. And there are good reasons for that, not just because I was getting older, I'm 31 now, but because arguably when you're between 30 and 35, you're possibly the loneliest that you can be in your startup journey because half of your friends may have proper careers at that point or families that they're starting and growing up with. And if you've done 10 years in a career to build up some money to go and start the business that you wanted, you might not have many peers around you. Whereas in your early 20s, it might be more likely that you find other people. But so we pushed that back, and then we got to a point where somebody who was 34 said, what happens next year? I remember right now, and do you kick me out when I turn 35? And that was crazy to me. Like, morally, that's so wrong. Legally, it's a gray area, and commercially it makes no sense. Like, what business in its right mind turns around to people and says, "Hey, stop paying us money now because you get a certain age"? That's crazy. So we decided just to remove it, and to announce the removal of it and kind of reposition ourselves. We rebranded. We didn't rename. We rebranded. Made all our comms lowercase Yena, capital Yena. Turned the acronym into a noun. That was the plan. And it worked to a certain extent, but there are still so many people that describe us as the Young Entrepreneur Networking Association. People that are closer to us than you might realize. I still get introduced as the founder of the Young Entrepreneur Networking Association at events. And I have to re-clarify that instantly so that people don't think that I'm excluding them and their demographic. Diversity by default is our key core value, and excluding people over 35 when the average age of a successful entrepreneur is 42 seems absolutely nonsensical, because it is. So we shifted that, and it just didn't change enough, and it would cost a lot of time and a lot of money, and require a much bigger team with much bigger campaigns to rewrite that and keep the name. At the same time, over a certain period of years, you do get emotionally attached to a business name. But then also you get to a point where you realize it doesn't matter. It's about the product. It's about the experience. And it's the execution that makes the name important. It's not the name that creates the business. Apple as a name doesn't really mean anything. But when you think Apple now, you think of minimalist, monochromatic products that are delivered to a high quality, and have a cult-like brand around it. And so yeah, the point remains that actually it's not necessarily the name, it's the work that's done. So we're deciding to change it. If we're repositioning quite aggressively in New Year, the product, as I say, won't change too much, so people won't have to worry about it if they're already members and they're already engaged in the community. What we hope will happen is that it will re-educate a potential audience of ours and allow us to grow organically and at an accelerated rate. By just making it easier to understand what we do, who we are, and what we sell. And the name will allow us to announce that properly to the world. Say, hey, we're not this anymore. We're different now. And that's, and that's something I'm really excited about. As a brand builder, I always get excited about the idea of a rebrand. As someone who's got very little time, I get very stressed about the idea of a rebrand, because it's not just as simple as changing your logo, as many people might think. And I used to think there's a whole lot more to it. Every time you change your brand, you have to change every email address, you have to change every piece of website communications, you have to change a domain name to something that probably isn't available anymore because everybody's bought them all up. You have to change business cards if you have any. We don't. You have to change a lot. And so it's a stressful exercise and something that needs to be carefully considered, but we've considered all the options, and this is the option we're going with. And I think you'll love it. I hope you'll love it. And it will allow us to implement a whole lot more as far as marketing campaigns go. So really excited about what 2021 is going to bring under this new name, with this new brand. And hopefully this gives you a bit of ideas as to why we're doing it. I'm, as ever, always open to questions. I've just started to adopt this build in public transparency angle, which means that hopefully everything will be kind of bared to you. To use the same joke I put in my article, don't worry, I'm talking about the business, nothing else. Yes, this is my flat, but this is hopefully all you'll need to see of me through these videos. Times aren't that hard, luckily. But if there are any questions, post them below. I'll happily answer them either in written format, in an article, in a comment, or in a future video if I end up doing more of them. But yeah, there's a lot to get done. I'm going to crack on, stop recording this video, and get back to my emails. If you are interested in getting involved in what the next phase of Yena is going to be in 2021, get in touch. The team's still tiny here. And we can do with all the help we can get to build something great. So yeah, stay safe, be good, do good, and I'll see you again soon.